Is it gonna? Howdy and welcome to Retro Repair Roundup, episode number whatever this episode is, because I can never remember.
It's quite high.
It's quite high. It's like 99,672. I don't know. But anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. We have a packed house tonight because we have basically the entire team of ShadyTel here. Before we get started, I want to thank everybody for putting up with me not being able to speak words this evening. In addition to that, thank everybody for being in the chat tonight, stopping by to listen to our wonderful little show. We know you got plenty of things that you could be doing, and many of them are not better than our show. So thank you for recognizing that. Remember, hit like, subscribe, and all of that magic. Some of the people we got in chat tonight, we got Ian, we've got two Jamies, Thomas, 1-Bit Fever Dreams, Silent, Mac84, Eep to Mac84, Everything is Broken Garage, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other people. So thank you for stopping by. Without further ado, let us introduce the wonderful people from ShadyTel. Let's start with VCF Kyle.
Oh, you put me on the spot. Maybe go first. Hey, y'all. So I go by VCF Kyle on Discord and whatever, basically because I have Discord because of VCFs. But I'm one of the showrunners of VCF Southwest, even though we're here to talk about Midwest. But so you may know me from that. Glad to be here.
I'm Rusty. Go by Dr. Deke in most places online, despite not being a doctor. Not the other kind either. Just a general computer and telephony nerd. Happy to be involved with ShadyTel.
Cool.
My name's Evan. I'm from Michigan. Also attend VCF Midwest part of this, of course. Telephone collector turned computer collector turned switching equipment collector turned telephone technician. Hobbyist telephone technician.
And I'm Anthony, also known as Termig or TRMG on IRC. I am I guess you should say, networking nerd. It's one of the things I always say is in my blood. Been interested in modern, vintage, all realms of technology all my life, and love participating in building the telephone network at VCF Midwest.
All right. I'm Joe Zatarski. I go by Joe_Z online. Not a very creative handle, but it gets the job done. And Joe's usually taken. I kind of coordinate and orchestrate the VCFMW telephone network these days.
Hi, I'm Michael. I go by Muldridge just about everywhere. Like Kyle, I'm one of the showrunners for VCF Southwest. And I'm with Southwest's ILAC, which is SneakyNet. Joe graciously allows me to join the ShadyTel crew under our Technician Exchange program.
So. Awesome.
Oh, and something I forgot to mention, and I was probably the dude you probably saw running around at Midwest in a hard hat, ShadyTel branded hard hat, and a high vis vest. So that was me.
Awesome sauce. I love it.
Yeah. Actually, we should take 1 second.
Yes, we should actually take a second and also go ahead and greet everyone that is hanging out in chat. Dave from Dave's Vintage Apple Tech. Francois is here. CDI, Jack68K, Mac84, Eep, Thomas Armstrong, Kalan, Silent 700, Ian Scott is here. Pink Boy 1006, Everything is Broken Garage. We also have i3D6SX, Jamie's Hack Shack, and one Bit Fever Dreams. Scrolling. Gut Bomb is here, and 50 Shades of Beige. It's good to see everybody. So
I
let me.
already did that, Ron. I did
Did
that
you?
at the beginning. Yes, I did.
Well, we've had other people.
Oh,
I just
okay.
making sure. You can. A good cast is worth a second mention. So,
Yes.
but let me
Oh,
go
really
ahead.
quick,
Yeah.
sneak in here. You said i80386SX is here in the chat. He hooked me up with a battery for my compact, so I just wanted to tell him thank you. It is
Oh,
working
that's
great.
really nice. Yeah, it's a compact, I guess.
Yeah, Contura
Mhm.
410CX, I believe, is the model.
Yeah.
It's off screen. Actually, it's right there if you can see it. But
Very nice. I know he's got a lot of great compact stuff, that's for sure.
Yep.
But hey, if people just want to shout out and step up with their answers, but what got the group interested in vintage telecom?
That's a hard question.
Sure. For me, I think, growing up in the 80s and 90s, was a computer nerd at the time, but didn't know anybody who really knew anything about how stuff worked. And, you're using the phone system all the time to dial up to BBSs and later the internet. And always wondered, how on earth does all this stuff work? You go to the library and get a book, but it's about 1930s step-by-step stuff. And so, as I grew up and got an actual job and an apartment and stuff, and, the internet was more and more accessible, you start reading about, well, that must be how this really worked. And then, you can start buying old Switch equipment on eBay, and you run into this crew online to help you try to figure out how to use it. And that was kind of the story.
collectively have lots of bad ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it starts with, hey, I wonder if we could.
Yeah.
I
Never
remember
studied.
the whole what was it? It was a span of 2 weeks, Joe, that we had organized getting to Alabama. It was fast. I remember that much.
Yeah, it was. I was like, man, I really shouldn't buy this thing that's on Gov Deals. And
I was like, you shouldn't, but if you do end up needing help, let me know.
And and I put a bid in that didn't meet reserve, and then it was 2 weeks later, I was like, well, I guess nobody bid on the phone switch. And then I get an email from the place selling it, and they're like, yeah, we'll give it to you for your bid that didn't meet reserve. And I'm like, because in the meantime, we had established we could do this, which is,
Yeah, the best friends are the ones
went
that
from there.
help push us into questionable acquisitions, right? Right.
I don't get tired of hearing the story of how you guys got the DMS and how you got it out of there. That is, I could hear it over and over again.
Maybe we
What's
could touch
a
on that
truer
little.
friend? One who will help you move a body, or one who will help you move a DMS? I don't know.
They're probably equivalent amounts of work.
Maybe we'll come back to that later. To the question at hand, as far as telephone interest in telephones, I guess I've always been interested in telephones for basically as long as I can remember. But similar to Rusty, kind of lacked the knowledge or access to resources to really do anything with it until I don't know, 2012, playing around with Asterisk and the first crappy Linksys VoIP ATA that was locked to Vonage that you had to unlock with something called fuck Vonage. And actually it was at the peak of people hacking, things to work with Google Voice that weren't supposed to work with Google Voice. So I think I found a how-to on how to use Yate with Google Voice and register an ATA to it. And so I had analog phones. And then that quickly broke and stopped working, and I couldn't get it to work again. And it kind of got set down for a while. Went to college. I assume we're going to talk more about this later. You know, at the time I was going to VCFMW, and there my roommate and I got, I think from the auction, a Cisco IED 2432, which is like, all right, now we've got a thing that can run some phone lines. Found some of the people, the group of some of the people that are on here, and figured out how to get it working, set up a dial plan, you know, and kind of got into phones and branched out from there. And all of the other stuff I've acquired and messed around with since then.
Yeah.
I kind of got into it a similar way. I started out in the era of the internet where computers scream at each other, and somehow this gets you online. And kind of that lifelong fascination of what actually just happened there. Like, there was this shrill noise, and now Google is on screen. And a minute later, well, let's be realistic, 15 minutes later, a Flash game has loaded in. So, you know, kind of working my way backwards from things I understood and things I found interesting towards, you know, how does that work? That has grown to the point of how does that work now involving oscilloscopes and logic analyzers and hardware that 15 years ago I would have never dreamed of owning.
That's a similar.
Go ahead.
I guess I'll go.
You go.
Okay. Similar curiosity, sort of, for me. So I'm 25, a little younger than some of us. This is probably around 2011. I noticed all the payphones are getting ripped out, and I hadn't noticed them before. This is something that's always there, right? And it's, oh, they're not there. That's kind of weird. So I asked, you know, my mom or whoever, like, why is that happening? Oh, you know, cell phones and all that stuff. Example. I want one. They're too cool. You know, I want to have something like that, right? And I didn't get my own payphone for a while after this, but I remember seeing like people with rotary phones online, a lot like that one without the cool extra buttons on it. And there's an antique shop down the road from here, and we went to the antique shop, and there's this guy that runs the place. I'm like, do you guys have any like rotary phones at all? And he's like, oh, you want rotary phones? I got a whole barn full of rotary phones. Why don't you come back in like 3 or 4 days? I'll have them for you. And he had them for me. So I still have one of those phones upstairs. They're actually some pretty collectible ones, but the switching equipment was an interesting tangent from that, because I started collecting the rotary phones, and I found a telephone club. It's called Telephone Collectors International. Was having a telephone show in East Lansing, Michigan, which is fairly close to here, probably about 2 hours or a little less than 2 hours. And I decided to go up there, and I met a guy who had something like this on display there working. And I was 12 or 13 years old, and that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. You know, it's like, dude, click, bang, ring, you know? That's really cool. So I ended up being good friends with that guy, and I'll try to cut myself off here. Long story short, almost all of this came from him in some fashion, or network people who I met through him. He's still one of my best friends. I visit there all the time. So that was kind of my path into this. As that continued, I started buying electronic PBXs because those were getting decommissioned and getting cheap for a teenager on eBay to buy. AT&T Definity. It's kind of a cool system. Takes big cards, a lot like that. Ended up getting one of those. Got that working. Met an odd guy on a forum who got me into actual phone freaking. And this becomes relevant because through that guy, finding where he was nowadays, I found the IRC channel that everybody in here except for the host hangs out in. And Joe convinced me in 2022 to come to VCF Midwest, and I'm very glad he did.
My kind of interest kind of was backwards. I was interested in computer networking at the very beginning. I was born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s and took complete, was totally oblivious to, oh yeah, we've got, we were the household that had 2 phone lines. So you could be on the internet and have a call at the same time. And, was of the era where, oh, I want to go see a friend. Call them, no, it just worked. But then at my second job, I was basically handed this project where they were transitioning over to voice over IP. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And at the time, it was, you only did IP on the inside of your network and your trunks were PRIs. And so getting to work with Cisco TAC, because yes, it was CUCM, and AT&T and whatnot on troubleshooting calls and stuff got me really interested. It's like, okay, well, how does the circuit switch network work? And so learning the fundamentals and how things are architected of this network that doesn't get nearly as much love as it should. You learn the fundamentals of how this network is designed, why the decisions were made, and if you think of how it was designed to be used, you're like, wow, these were very purposely thought out decisions. And the way this network is architected is, as long as the companies maintain it, is very robust, very strong. It's quite a crazy, vast web of infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would go real quick. Is that I kind of like Anthony. I started in network engineering and whatnot. And my first job in the late 2000s, my first big boy job was a sysadmin, and I always dealt in this half of the room, and nobody touched the phone magic on this side of the room. We had a guy we called who did that. And one time I needed something. He came in and he's over there working on it. I'm just watching him, fascinated. And then fast forward a few weeks, we had some new employees and like, hey, we need a digital set, because it was a Watsu key system that had an OS2 based voicemail server. But they said, hey, we got these new employees and they need digital sets over here. So I went and found a punch tool and figured out what bit to use on a 66 block and traced everything and punched it down and miraculously made it work. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then a few years later, I actually started my own managed services company, and we sold phones. We didn't sell many of them. I had other things that took up most of my time, but I replaced a few ComDial systems and AT&T Merlin systems. And as I'm pulling these out, I'm like, man, these are cool, but never really spent much time on it until a few years ago when I moved here to Dallas and met Michael. He brought his phone stuff to a local meetup, and I'm like, wait a minute, there are other people that like this stuff. And I spent about 3 of the 4 hours at the show standing talking to him about what in the world he has brought. That's awesome. And it was basically game over, and now I have like 5 PBXs in my closet. So
they seem to multiply, don't they?
They do. Just like IMAX.
Well, especially when you message a seller on eBay because they have VCM50s listed, and you say, hey, do you have the power supplies? And they reply saying, no, but do you want to buy all 5 for $20? Shit. Well,
how can you say no to that?
Now I have 5.
Oh, man. So this brings us into our next question, and that is, who is ShadyTel, and when did it form? Who wants to?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So ShadyTel, I don't have like an exact year formation. It's always been kind of a loose group, and I'm going to just say outright, I'm not like a founding member or anything. I'm very much after the fact. So ShadyTel is kind of a loose group of friends. It sort of originated, I think, in more like the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And several of the people who knew each other out there, group of friends, they were sort of like a group of friends before the name ever came along. And then the name was kind of like a joke about something that kind of stuck. And they're like, that's too cool of a name to just not, use.
Yeah.
And so that's like really kind of the root of it. And it's kind of grown, through the IRC channels and online spaces and whatever else, several of us are involved with ShadyTel in, to varying degrees. And ShadyTel, their main public claim to fame is that there's another like hacker convention out in the Pacific Northwest that's called Tour Camp. And Tour Camp has been running, I think ShadyTel's presence at Tour Camp, I think, has been running for about a decade now. I'm not sure if Tour Camp predates them or what the history of that is exactly, but I think sometime in the late 2000s, ShadyTel first showed up running a GSM network at the camp. So 2G cell phones, like flip phone era. And the next year, that the camp happened, I think they added wireline telephone services. They had acquired a Definity PBX
Yep.
and like ran phone lines everywhere. And tour camp happens every 2 years.
Yep.
And they've been doing it ever since. And they kind of realized after like that second time that the wireline phones really got a lot more interest from everybody than the cell phones even really did. So they were like, well, that's going to become our main thing now. Cause like one, that's a little, never mind the physical plant aspect, which is like, you know, a whole ton of work, but like wireline
It's fun,
stuff
though.
just kind of works. Like once you have it set up. So there's a convenience factor to like not having to fight with weird RF stuff. So, you know, if anybody's has any more knowledge or questions or something to add, go ahead. But I think that's kind of the gist of it.
I'd say the one thing that
go ahead.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, okay, I was just going to add that I did tour camp with, I guess what you would call the OG ShadyTel crew in 2022, and it was a blast. You know, there's nothing like splicing, 2,000-foot boxes of cable together to reach from one end of camp to other, and having to cross, like we had the main trunk between upper and lower camp. We had to cross a stream and a bridge, and we can't impede on people walking and stuff. And so you're fishing the cable kind of through the bridge and whatnot, and then you get to a couple of paths. Okay, well, how do we cross the paths? Well, you wrap the cable around the trunk of one tree, and you go over, and you wrap it around the trunk of the other tree, and you keep going.
Literal trunking.
It was a lot of fun. Yep.
Yeah. I was going to add, I think the thing that sets ShadyTel apart, because, there are lots of people who collect telephones and collect telephone switches. And the thing that we do on top of that is that, and I have to give credit where credit's due. It was Jesse from the Genera Cable crowd who said, there's nothing like a bit of corporate role play.
Yes.
We show up as the company. So that means we show up with the branding. We show up with the graphical asset packages. We've got the bills with the name on top. We show up as the phone company, and then that's the meme where we turn up service to. And it's fun to be able to have that side of it too, because ShadyTel is often represented as a caricature of the most aggressive phone company you can think of like, you thought about ShadyTel. That's going to appear as a line item on your bill.
So I have to cover it, but here I have a ShadyTel bill. Or is this a ShadyTel, or is this a sneaky net bill? But
yes.
Oh, here I'll pull it back up for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Love
so one of my novelty bills from I think last year, and
awesome sauce.
Yeah, I'm not sure who coined the phrase, but I think at one point the saying, some people play fantasy football, others play fantasy phone company was on some ShadyTel.
Yeah, I think that was the tagline on the Twitter account for a long time, and it may be on the
probably what it
Mastodon
was.
account now.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Let me ask you this. So for the equipment, because you kind of have talked a little bit about where you've gotten things for your personal collections and such, but is the equipment that is used at the VCF events and beyond, is that just things pulled from your personal collections, or is it that you guys have some club equipment? And if so, kind of where do you source all of that from?
Yeah, Joe, you want to take that for Midwest? And good point, Termic. I was going to say, Joe, you want to take that for Midwest, and I'll answer from the perspective of Southwest?
Yeah. So for Midwest, it is the base foundational equipment is a mixture of owned by me directly. Some of the cabling is owned by the show, or maybe one of the show runners. So a lot of the 25 pair cable is not mine. Gets stored with the VCF NW stuff. Some of the 25 pair cable these days is mine because I'm supplementing it. And then a lot of the switching equipment is mine, but Anthony also brings a few items. Aldridge contributes. on the IP side. Exhausted brings the step switch demo. Rusty brought some ISDN video phones. So, you know, it kind of all comes from our personal collections for VCF MW. You know, and it just differs like by every event for tour camp. I think, I'm not sure if the nonprofit org that uses the ShadyTel name owns that equipment or if it's owned by people personally or what the deal is there, but it, you know.
I think it's a mix.
Yeah, because I think the nonprofit owns, I think, the core TDM switch, but then I think some of the extra equipment comes from members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As you say, for VCF Southwest, that equipment's mine. You're getting a very carefully framed camera angle here so that you can't see the mess that's out of frame on that side, where there's pallet racking in this room, and that's where all the cables and the network interfaces and the power equipment lives. If I lean over, you can see a set of ATA flight cases behind me. That's the TDM core network for VCF Southwest. So it's because Dallas tends to be a show that people fly to rather than drive to from this group. All that equipment needs to live here. And that heavily influences when we show up and turn up service for an event. You know, where that equipment came from is really, did we have to get it on a plane?
Yeah.
One of the OG members of ShadyTel tells the story of bringing a Dell PowerEdge 1950 with a somewhat exotic Diva card in it through TSA as their checked luggage or as their carry-on luggage. Because that was the way to get it to tour camp.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
it's like the story. It reminds me of the story. A couple years ago, was it? I think it was Garth Bugle or somebody like that. They brought an Apple III as their carry-on. Yeah. Same mood, same vibe behind that.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes there's the feeling of like, it doesn't matter if I make it to the show in one piece. This thing that is the MacGuffin that the other people there are depending on needs to get there.
Yes.
Well, and then you go into the whole, like, as at least with Midwest, which is what I have the most experience with, every iteration, more exhibitors are relying on the network more for their exhibit. And then you go, okay, well, maybe we need to have spares of things now, because if we break, their exhibit now is not as cool as it would normally have been.
Yeah, you start not wanting to mess things up, you know, and
Yeah.
What was it you said, Josie? You said we are you in your talk with Maldridge at Midwest. You use a phrase like
we're the exhibit that enables other exhibits.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I will say, as somebody who has attended Midwest for many years, it has always been very enjoyable to watch the camaraderie and to watch how well the team works together, especially when something goes wrong. And I'm not saying that there has been times when things have been challenging, but I would say that there appears to be I've only been coming for like 5 years. And in the early days, it seems like there was like you guys were running all weekend because there was something that was like, cabling issue or something like that, or something was dragging the system down, or I'm not an expert, so you have to
the literal power.
Yeah, like there was something that was happening, and then there was a point where you guys started rolling out the boxes, and it was all like Cat 6, and it seems like the level of headaches went down. But it has been a joy watching the evolution of this group and watching you guys work together to solve these things. I have never heard. I have poor hearing, but I have never heard anybody yelling at anybody over there. It's like if there's a problem, it's just everybody puts their head down, and it's like we're solving that problem. So that is please accept this very long-winded compliment on what you guys have done and what you continue to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think we work really well together, and we kind of just naturally figure out which pieces we can kind of take on, and we divide and conquer. And I mean, every year it gets better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually, to that comment that Pink Boy just had in the chat with power, because of how seriously we take delivering service, and that we have to work. We were battery backed this last year. We could have coasted through, I think, up to 6 hours of loss of utility power, because shutting down the CO and bringing it back up is an involved affair.
Yeah. That
So
made me
we-
laugh because I think you'll remember, Maldridge, when I picked up the phone the first time on the step switch this year, I was like, I've never heard this dial tone sound this good
It's so clean.
from the 60 hertz on that unit.
This was
yeah.
a double conversion UPS, so it was synthesizing its own,
Yep.
Oh yeah,
carrier
it's
frequency. And,
it's a dual conversion UPS with an ungodly heavy transformer sitting on top of it.
That was
yeah,
that
why
was
was
good.
I forget why was that? Was it 240 output only or something?
Yeah, it's
or-
an online 208
or
volt.
240.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 208, right?
Yeah, but the history there is, so Ron, I think you've been going to VCFMW about as long as I've been the one running the telephone network, because there were a couple years, I believe in like 2000, maybe 2017, 2018 for sure, and 2019, where the telephone network was kind of like, we're going to string some, and it was run initially by one of the showrunners, Mike Lee, and then the next year by another one, Pat Finnegan, who brought a very large Meridian Option 61, and that was in 2019. And the telephone network at that time was kind of like, we're going to snake some 25 pair around the room. There's going to be breakouts. People are going to plug their phones in. They're going to figure out what number they're on, and it's going to be chaos, and somehow it's going to work. Which, it like, there are ways to do that and have it work well. 2020, of course, we had our gap year due to COVID-19, and then 2021 was the first year that I was running the network, and I'm just going to say it fell flat on its face. I had like the thing that I got down to is I was on a wall. I ran a cable down the length of the wall. I had like 3 people, and I don't think I got the lines up until like sometime Saturday. And at the time, I think I had just acquired the Meridian 1 option 11 that runs the show these days, and I had that set up, and I had a few other things set up, and like, did it work? Yes, but like nobody really used it, and I really wanted it to grow. So the next year, the major improvement was we asked people on the sign-up form if you want telephone service, and then I emailed them beforehand so that I could figure out what they needed, assign them phone numbers, figure out where they're going to be, where to run the cable. And so we ran the 25 pair around. I had the switch at my table. We branched out through like the back service hallway of that venue. I have apparently lost the map. I must have had a map where I drew out like where the cables were going to go beforehand. But and that year I had like 20 people who wanted phone and maybe 30 lines. And so I kind of ran around, told everybody where to get plugged in, help them run cables and snake the cables around the floor and all that stuff. The next year, 2022, we did basically the same thing. But that year I had 40 subscribers and 60 plus lines. And I spent like, I think we got in Thursday night running cables around, and I didn't finish getting people plugged in until like Saturday morning. And the biggest part of it was like the way the cable plant was done in those years. Like I had to go tell you, hey, you need to plug into this jack and run your 25-foot phone cord over. And like people were plugging into the wrong jack because they thought I told them, one thing, and they got like off a row in the breakout or something, and whatever it was. And I spent a good part of the weekend basically running around like telling people where to plug their phones in, figuring out problems as we discovered them. And it became very clear, like, okay, I have to improve this somehow. And that's where, these came from. the so-called shady rate interface, and that's what you're referring to with the 4-pair cable. That was a major improvement because now it was like, okay, these are my jacks. That's what I plug my stuff into. These are yours. That's what you plug your stuff into. And that, I think the first time, so those are custom design. I think the first time we deployed those, that would have been 2024.
Yep.
Yeah, it was actually my show
last year.
last year was the
Technically,
very
yes,
first
it
time
was-
those got deployed.
It was at Southwest.
Yeah.
Because of the way timing worked out. I was designing those, and Maldridge was like, hey, those could be really useful for what I do. And so I got extras made, shipped the parts down to him, and you built like 16 or 32 of them or something and used them at the show without cases because he didn't have time to come up with cases.
Look, just don't lick the wires.
Yeah. Engineer tip number 1: never lick the metal bits.
Caution, cap circuit.
Ringing
Or you do if you need to make
across
things
the
live.
and that's kind of the model we've been running on these past couple of years is you snake the 25 pair around the room. That's all planned in advance. All the 4-pair cables are planned in advance, but you go from 25 pair down to 4-pair. You drop one of these at somebody's table and label it, and then they know exactly where to plug in. And the labeling that year was just, we had stick-on labels, and then at the end of the year, I'm like, that was to get it done and have something, but I knew, I'm like, man, I'm going to have to peel every one of these labels off before next year.
Yep.
So the new design is, I think, much improved.
Yes.
It is a printed, man, that does not want to focus. Let me see if I can get rid of some of the glare.
Yeah, the glare's gone, but
try,
the focus...
give me one moment because I can change my camera here. I have a second camera, and this one will at least attempt to focus if I hold it still enough.
Hey, there you
It's
go.
going to be hard, but the idea here is that's actually just a piece of paper that's cut out, and that way it's sandwiched between 2 pieces of plexiglass. And so when I'm done with that one, as we are now, before next year, when all these come apart to put the new labels in, the label just comes out. There's no adhesive to undo.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of improvements over the years of like, how do I improve setup, coordination, all those sorts of things to make it possible to do this. And the first year, the very first thing was big was we're going to put it on the forum and I'm going to email people. And the next thing was emailing people took a lot of time. So we're going to put stuff on the forum where I don't need to email so many people and wait for their responses and work with them. And so I don't exactly know the order in the years. I'd have to look back through my notes. But, there were like big major changes every year that to get a little bit of improvement, to be a little bit of a quality of life improvement for us. The first couple of years running it, let's see, it was just me, but then Anthony, what year did you first come? It was 2023.
2023 or 2, same year as Evan. That was both our first.
23.
It was 2023. Anthony's a huge help. He comes out a week in advance, basically, and a few days at least, and helps me with all the last minute, like I need to do all these cross connects. I need to plan these cables out. I need to terminate these cables. Huge help with a lot of that last minute. Like we just need to there's not, a whole bunch of planning into it anymore. It's just like now we just need to churn on all these jumper wires, got to get cross connected,
Okay, this was my first year helping set up the system, and I was just completely in awe at the amount and quality of pre-planning that had gone on. That would have been, I would have been very hard pressed to do that. So congratulations.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into running the network that people at the shows never see. That's, we've got binders of documentation and diagrams that show how it all wires together. We actually have a whole CRM now that tracks line utilization and equipment loadout. There's a lot of stuff you never see that is just so that we don't go insane. Now, I think from our debrief call at the end of Midwest, our single biggest quality of life improvement was locating a trash can to have in the CO and buying some flats of water so that we could drink something during the day.
Man.
Mhm.
So
It sounds similar to the way COs and telecoms worked back in the day, and to some extent today as well, is all of this magic that happens behind the scenes so that when you pick up the phone, you have downtown and it just flipping works. It's like the light bulb in the fridge. We don't know how it makes light, but when I open the door, the fridge is lit up. So
I thought it was a little penguin that kind of went over there and
mine's a little Irish guy with bells on green shoes. I don't know where you got your fridge from, but anyway.
not a stereotype.
Every year we're, and it's started with me and Anthony and Exhausted, but it's like every year we're always like, okay, what can we do a little better next year to reduce the load on us a little bit, maybe add a service we didn't have before, or add something to exhibit at our tables. Because the very first year or two at my table was like, this is just the equipment that runs the phone network. Like, some people care about that, some people find it interesting, but a lot of people are like, oh, okay, and then continue on with their lives, because like it's a big gray box that runs the phones to them.
It doesn't even have a lot of blinking lights, sadly.
I know, it's terrible.
Yeah,
No
most of the
fan.
lights are steady when things are working.
Yeah. If it's blinking, something's broken.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. I'm really curious. Do any of you work in telecom as your regular job? Yes or
I'll start. No, I manage data centers for a living. I do large scale Linux automation.
I mean, I think the
I
closest.
I do not work in telecom either. I'm basically a sysadmin for my day job.
Yeah, I work on ERP, so like think SAP, that kind of stuff. That's what I do. And so it's funny because you tell people that they go, "Oh, what's your hobby?" And I go, "Oh, I play on computers." And they go, "Well, isn't that also your job?" It's yes, but
It's close.
different.
Shh, don't question it.
I think the closest probably is me, and I don't work in telecom, but I am a senior network engineer at my employer. Except I enjoy that too, but telecommunications is a different type of fun. But like was mentioned here, like what Kyle mentioned, like, I'm breaking BGP at work. I'm also breaking BGP at home. So
Our hobbies, you have to know a lot about to tell when we punch out, and then we do the home stuff.
like this my laptop here right now, I think it's 3 hops to the Verizon ONT.
Yeah, I'm just an electrical engineer, so I design electronics for commercial appliances, a particular product line and market, but basically just I design electronics. So technology's always been an interest. Telephone is an extension of that, but no, I don't work in it.
Well, if you were to go back and redo your history with the knowledge and stuff that you have in your work history, with the knowledge and stuff you have now, do you think you may have ended up working for telecom, or or being a phone freak back in the day or whatnot? This is just a fun thing to think about.
I think if I was born 10 years earlier, 100% yes. I think I was born just late enough where it became less feasible. But when I was a kid, that was a job that I had in mind. Was work for the telephone company and work on their network. Yes, I could say, yeah.
I think knowing what I know now, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't. Just because I know not even the telephone company works on the telephone network.
Yeah.
And they've been teeing that up for years now to not.
I guess that's fair.
It's a little bit of like, would I have wanted to in an alternate reality where that didn't happen? Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to spend my days maintaining equipment like what's behind Joe. But the reality of our world today is that everything went to IP.
Okay, if I was born 20 years ago.
Yes, you got to revise your estimate there.
Yeah, that's
I'm
Honestly,
retiring now.
I always did sort of assume I would end up working in telecom in one capacity or another. You know, at one point I kind of assumed that meant either the phone company or an ISP when ISPs were plentiful and competitive. Later, not the same kind of telco we're talking about, but later I thought, well, I'll probably end up being a network engineer, IP. But just as things turned out, I've been pretty happy with my sysadmin career and have not burned myself out on telecom and networking as hobby projects. So
It's a miracle we have a non-burnt out sysadmin.
I know, and I haven't even burnt myself out on recreational sysadmining either, which is the craziest part, given that I do that all day. But somehow it keeps the interest stays.
Yeah, I'd say my answer is pretty much in the same boat as Maldridge and Anthony. Like, by the time I was entering the workforce, you could argue that traditional telephony was well understood, that it's kind of on its way out. The phone company doesn't want to be the phone company anymore. So, but if I was born in the prime years of the Bell system or something, I'm sure I would have wanted to work for Western Electric or Automatic Electric or one of the other big manufacturers of telephone equipment.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. If I could have had a career doing this, that would have been really cool. And transitioning into a career doing what's behind Joe's camera there. Yeah, that'd be
Just
cool.
imagine working at that big Western Electric plant in Columbus, Ohio back in the day, the Lucent plant. That would have been so fun.
Yeah.
Think of all the amazing stuff that would be there. But you guys talked about working with VCF Midwest and how things kind of transitioned from having people there at the event, kind of throwing things out there because they had a million other things on their plate, and ShadyTel kind of stepping in and filling in that role as the telecom for those events. You talked about Southwest, you talked about all of that. Have you guys ever collaborated with the Connections Museum?
Bits and pieces. We know a number of the people who have worked very, very closely on those machines. Not all those people are still with the Connections Museum, but the Connections Museum has a world unique collection. And I think one of the cool curatorial challenges that they face is that, one, most of the people who know how that equipment works are either retired or dead or both.
Or they already work at the Connections Museum.
Right, or they already work at the Connections Museum. So when they need to solve a weird problem, the pool of people they reach out to is very shallow. It's the kind of thing of if you ask, we did this right after VCF Midwest. We were curious in the AI hype that we live in now. Could we get Gemini to tell us how to cold start a DMS 100? And it took us a minute to realize it was just transcribing Joe's YouTube video.
Yeah, it wasn't the first source. It was the second source. We had to scroll down one more.
Yeah. So it's like the Connections Museum, because of the unique nature of their collection, though we don't work directly with them, since that's a physical collection you kind of need to be in Seattle to work on.
Listen, I don't know how many Southwest miles you have. I just
not enough.
You spend it however you want.
Plus, now that they've got that assigned seating, no, American all the way.
So, mention the Connections Museum. I haven't worked with them so much. I've talked to their collection curator is the word. Those type of people. And so, since some of this equipment is unique in working order, well, this stuff is people have that. That's a KS15532 list 2 ring machine there, and you can't exactly Google how to wire the 3-phase motor on that to the interrupter to produce ringback tone. And actually, there's a funny story about that I won't get into here, or maybe somebody wants to ask about it later. But anyway, so Sarah at the Connections Museum, and as well as Astrid, she doesn't work there anymore, I don't believe, but at the time she did. They were able to dig up schematics for me for this specific ring machine off of aperture cards, and which are little IBM punch cards that have a piece of microfilm mounted in them. Take pictures of the microfilm viewer and send me pictures of the schematics so I can get that working. So there's nowhere else in the world where that would be possible.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah, I've never been out to the Connections Museum yet. Maybe someday, but I have met some of the people who work there or volunteer there, I should say, online and even in person. Last year, I helped out with some equipment they were moving to the museum from the East Coast, and they said, "Hey, we're in a pinch. We need somebody who can drive a truck, like from the East Coast to Ohio, where some equipment's going to get stored temporarily until we have time to go bring it the rest of the way." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I can swing that and make it work." So, flew out there, helped them load the truck basically, and then drove it to an intermediate storage location in Ohio. Met up with some other people I had met previously as well, and we did a few things there for some days before I went home. And so met Sarah, and I'm gonna blank on everybody's name. I think Matt and Claire, and I think that's And so I've met some of the people from the Connections Museum. Not everybody, but handful of them.
Cool. I have another question. I have
I'm shocked.
I have thousands of questions, but we only have like 30 more minutes. So tell us a little bit of some of the services that you've added over the years. Of course, it starts as, just dial tone, but there's got to be more than dial tone. So.
Well, no, it's even more specific than dial tone, because there's a difference between dial tone coming off of my switches versus dial tone coming off of Joe's switches and what you can do with that. So I'd say we went from base dial tone up to, Joe, you've got like 1 million features on everybody's line now.
Well, yeah, so let's actually take one step back. So I didn't run the telephone network in 2019, but I did offer 56K dial-up internet service. Or maybe I didn't have internet, but you could at least dial into a modem bank that was at my table and over a T1 line and get like terminal services and things like that. So that was, if you want to lump that in, that was like the first service that ShadyTel Midwest offered, was just dial-in modems. But since I wasn't running the telephone network that year, that actually technically predates, offering the analog phone service. The 2021, of course, then, now I'm offering analog telephone service. That was pretty much all I did in 2021, and I think all I did in 2022. But I still had the dial-up modem access. At some point, I got like a bridge going to get onto the venue Wi-Fi, and then I don't know if I ever had internet access working, but you could at least dial in and like Telnet out for my equipment in theory. I don't know if anybody used it, but I was bringing the Meridian, and it's like, well, I just want to offer people like whatever I can provide, whatever I have the expertise. If they find it useful, great. And so I'm like, yeah, if you want a digital telephone set off the Meridian, like a PBX phone, like, yeah, you could do that. I can manage that. And, since I think 2022, or maybe it was 3, somebody's requested a digital line, or I've just put one somewhere like every year. So, little bits of that. To Maldridge's point, he can talk a little more about the equipment he uses to run Southwest, but the Meridian one is like a full-featured PBX. So, I can set up 3-way calling, call waiting, all sorts of weird and odd and wonderful features that you would never have even thought there was a need for. I literally went through every single telephone line option that exists on the Meridian, and there's stuff in there where you're just like, who was using this? Why does this even exist?
Yeah. Well, you get to stuff in the manual, like when we were setting up billing. You remember there's that great one-liner in the CDR manual that says, this is true unless it's the end of the month and one end of the call is in Japan. In which case, you need to see Japanese billing addendum B.
Yeah,
there are features in this equipment. Yeah,
telecom equipment. Like you think, like, oh yeah, it's just all POTS lines. Like, how much variation could there possibly be? But there's so many weird services that existed, somewhere. At some point, I got the equipment to offer ISDN BRI, which was if you remember those 128K ISDN lines that, you may have wanted when you were younger. I have the equipment to offer that, right? Like the number of people that I know who have the equipment to offer that are like 90% of them are in this stream right now. So
I'm looking at a BRI card right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's that thing, like everybody always wanted it when they were young and never got it, or maybe they did. Like I know Rusty, you actually had BRI service.
I did. It was loads of fun. It actually was.
And so like if you bring that SGI, what is it? The Indigos have the BRI port on the back. If you bring that, I can get you 128K internet service on it. I offer weird analog trunks. If you just want like a pair that goes from your table to another person's table, I can do that. When it was still possible to do it in 2022, there's a feature of the Meridian where it's normally used for music on hold. You pipe in audio to an analog trunk. And normally it's used as a source of music for when you put somebody on hold, but you can assign it a number, or actually you have to assign it a number, and it'll support an infinite number of callers. So I had a number you could dial, and you could listen to the talks audio feed from anywhere. So like if you didn't want to leave your table and you wanted to hear a talk, you could dial this number and listen to the talks. Because of limitations on where I'm able to run cables, we had an issue setting that up in 2023, and then in 2024 the talks were across the hall, so I can't exactly run a pair across the hall without doing weird things that we just never came up with a solution. And so I haven't had that past that year, but like there's all sorts of weird things. I'm basically like, if I know how to do it and I have the equipment to do it, or I can get the equipment to do it and I want to do it, like it's kind of and of course we provide all variety of T1s, channel bank T1s, ISDN PRI, CAS signal trunk T1s. Most of those people don't use, but like they're always an option, and so it's always like the little thing at the end of the list is like, and other, if you have something else you want and you reach out to me with enough time and it's something I have the expertise to provide, I want to do that for you. I want to be able to provide those weird services so that, right, we're the exhibit that enables other people's exhibits. So if you want to build something that extends beyond your table, right, use the network.
Yeah. And
I actually think Anthony brings. I was going to say, I think Anthony brings some of the really cool equipment because you bring the spicy trunks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you want to tell us a little bit about HDSL.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, a T1 is typically it's a 4-wire circuit. Well, HDSL2 is a technology that telephone companies can use to condense that to a 2-wire circuit. And that also brings the added benefit that I'm sure a lot of people have heard the term smart jack. And when you get a T1 or a PRI from a telephone company, they hand it off to you via a smart jack. What that is it's a unit on the remote side from the CO that basically allows, well, for one, it supports the HDSL2 framing and encapsulation, decapsulation stuff. But that also allows the telephone company to monitor the circuit and know if the problem is on their side or if it's on the customer side. And you have to provide the remote unit power. So HDSL2, the span power is somewhere around 190 volts DC. So yeah, you want to be careful. Those usually are labeled as like high cap circuits. Those go in the bucket of the wires you do not want to lick.
Yeah, that's why there are covers on the Shady Rate interfaces.
That and ring voltage, yes.
Well, yeah. But the 190 is energized at all times.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one you're a lot more likely to hit. Yeah, on the. Go ahead.
Yeah, once the HDSL span has synchronized, then it's constant span voltage. But it is pretty cool. I forget the the standard. There is a standard for it. When the remote side is down, it does like really quick like pulses, like every 10 seconds or something, a very short burst of voltage to see if the remote unit is reachable. So when it is down, it's only intermittent spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
you
was
It's
Yeah,
just
you
long
have a
enough for you to
challenge
get
for
hold of the cable.
Yeah, grab the cable and see who can hold on. Every time it's like,
Yep, like little bumps every.
Well, no, it's DC. You won't be able to let go of it.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
one thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say on the topic of T1s, like we've had a few T1 customers over the years, so I like I'd like to go through it. So the I think in 2022 was a friend of mine who brought his ComDial PBX, and I served him a T1 so he could link in with the network and gave him like, you know, a block of 100 numbers or something. And another interesting one is those have digital sets as well. And so there was somebody else that he knew at the show, and we punched down or it was wire wrap at the time. We wrapped down a jumper from his system over the cable plant that I brought and put a digital set at somebody else's phone off his PBX. So that was the first competitive local exchange carrier at VCFMW. So technically that predates Maldred and SneakyNet.
It does,
showing up.
yes.
Yeah. The next year we had a T1 data subscriber right across the aisle from where I was at. So, 1.5 megabits of blazing fast, IP connectivity. And I brought all the equipment to do it because he was the guy who ordered that was like, he wanted wireline internet connectivity of some type. And the way the show normally handles this is like, if somebody asks for it, we'll like throw you an Ethernet line and figure it out like at the show. Very low effort kind of, thing. And then, but it was like, I'm like, no, I'll serve you a T1. And he's like, oh yeah, let's do that. So I was joking, Mike is one of the other show organizers, Mike Lee, and he was running out the Ethernet span. And I was like, kind of jokingly sneering at him, like, I already beat you to the customer, the phone company already ran the internet. You're too late, like, because I had the T1 up already. And and then we've had a few people bring PBXs. Pink Boy in the chat, he brings I forget if it's a Toshiba or Panasonic, but he got the ISD on PRI that year. It's another guy who brings a channel bank because why wouldn't he just to do it? And I give him 24 lines and the bill to go with it. We had like I think 3 people who brought. Yeah, let's see. So it was somebody brought a Cisco ISR and had an ISDN T1 to it. The generic cable guys brought their BCM 50. They're normally the ones who get the digital set, but this year they're like, no, we want to get our BCM set up this time with a ISDN PRI. And I'm like, okay. And so they got an ISDN PRI. And then Pat Finnegan, one of the other showrunners with Mo Batch, Museum of Batch Computing History. I don't remember the acronym exactly. It's something like that. But he brought a Cisco modem bank where you could dial in and it would allow you to hit some of the vintage systems at his exhibit. And that was over ISDN. So like, I really like when people use the weirder services. Like, yeah, everybody gets a POTS line, but when I get to like run a T1 or when I get to, run some weird like dry pair thing or something like that's great. Cause that's I've constructed the network in ways to allow that kind of thing. And so I like when people find some use for it that's like outside just an analog line.
I think one of my favorite cases of that was actually last year. The first year we were at the Schomburg Center, and it was a young man from the SGI exhibit who realized we had better internet because we were downlinking on 5G ultra wideband as an enterprise customer. So sure, you have T-Mobile. I don't care. My bandwidth is QoS above yours. And this young man came up and said, can I get internet? I'm like, well, yes, if you want to leave your laptop here, but we could also deliver you DSL to your booth. And he was amazed that the internet came in on the same pair as the phone And the magic that was the DSL splitter is definitely magic to a lot of people now.
Mhm.
And it's, to me, it's stuff like that is the coolest thing we do, is we enable what you want to do in ways you may not have realized was possible.
Yeah, and that was the first year we offered DSL, thanks to Exhausted bringing his D-Slam.
The Grand
Yeah,
Slam.
The Grand Slam.
Yes,
One
the
of the
Grand
best
Slam.
product names in the industry.
Yeah, and brought a pile of DSL modems, and people brought some of their own, and I think you got like 5 off the free pile to throw into the mix too. So
Yeah, I mean,
It's
so where
some of
does
my-
some of our equipment come from? We make a regular rotation to the free pile. And at Midwest now, when things come into the garage sale, we sometimes will get a phone call from Central Command saying, hey, a big box of stuff came in, come look at it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think some of you guys took home some BCM phones that way.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole case over there full of them.
Yeah, I took
and
some.
and then I think the main thing we added this year was, aside from Wi-Fi, was it was POCSAG paging.
Yeah.
So we're running pagers.
And I
That's
think one of
awesome.
the coolest things that we've added isn't even a service, is that we, obviously we have 411 and 611 and all that, which was great because people actually called 411 to ask us when a session was happening. So it kind of became 411 for the show. So we sat there and we have an operator console and we have the ACD sets. And so people could call 411 and go, hey, what time is this happening? And we go, 1 second. And we'd find some, oh, that's at 2. So, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
But one of
It
the
would
best stories,
also.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
one of the best stories I had of that whole thing is that we had to play to the bed. And so I'm sitting there and someone called 411 and said, hey, my phone isn't working. And I said, okay, well, what's going on? They explained it. Well, the ringer isn't working. I said, okay, well, this is directory assistance. You need to call phone repair at 611. And
Yeah.
they said, okay, hung up. And I sat there. The other phone rings, 611. ShadyTel directory, ShadyTel repair. And my phone isn't ringing. Is it okay? So is it, are you calling me on it? I said, oh no, just the ringer isn't working, but the phone works. I said, well, can we borrow a phone? So, oh, well, you need to call sales to get to do that. So call the operator. They can write you to sales. So then the console rings. ShadyTel operations. Can we speak to sales? Yeah, let me transfer you. ShadyTel sales. Can we borrow a phone? Yes, absolutely. I'll be right there. Hang up. And I brought him a phone and set them up. And there we go.
This story is even better when you understand the customer that was calling Kyle was the Chuck E. Cheese table down at the very corner of Midwest.
Yes. And then it was even better when somebody was behind me calling on Evan's step switch.
Yes.
And they call 611 or 411 or something. And they said, why is my bill so high? And I said, I don't know. We like money. And they said, well, I demand to speak to your supervisor. And Joe is standing in front of me. He goes, and I said, well, let me go find him, put him on hold. Pass the phone over. I said, this is the supervisor.
It took us a solid 3 or 4 minutes to realize the person was standing 6 feet away, watching this whole thing go down.
When I passed the phone off, and then I could hear them behind me, and I turned around and
I think my favorite was when we would get calls to repair because a area of the floor had lost power.
Yes.
So the circuit breaker tripped for an exhibit or a array of exhibits, but their phones still worked just fine, and they called us to try to get some help with power.
Just like the good old days.
That's funny. Well, I'll say this: you guys probably want to have an even hand with some of your corporate customers that you have, because Charles Entertainment Cheese draws a lot of water, more than maybe you're giving him credit. So you might an even hand with that one. But
I mean, the Pizza Time Theater was a very good customer. Graciously accepted their bill, and the repair charges on it.
Speaking of, Generic Cable got some white glove service with their PBX, and we forgot to bill them for that.
No, we gave them BCM advising. We charged them for that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes. We didn't charge them for the damage they caused to the telephone company's plant.
Right.
But
Yeah. And for anybody watching who doesn't know what a BCM is, there's one right over Maldridge's head there. That is a
it's
Nortel
that
switch. Yeah.
Well, since everybody is here, I'd like to pitch a service to you for next year. There is a Apple networking standard called Apple Talk that basically can run over 4net. It's just two pieces of copper. It's got to send it, it's got to receive it. It does require a special piece of equipment that basically works like a switch for all of these little connections. Our friend Tom Barber has one of these, bought one of these recently. What are the chances that Apple Talk could be, or having a phone net port at someone's station? Because it turns it into a star network.
I'm glad you clarified that, because we do actually have the ability to terminate Apple Talk at the protocol level, and have for many years now. As far as how that works, I can say that we offer application and system hosting co-location options in the central office.
Okay.
If you have the unobtainium MacGuffin that does the thing, that's usually the limitation to us offering service, is finding it.
I do think that local talk phone net would probably work over the physical plant, though. It was designed for in-building phone wiring.
It was designed exactly for that. So I'm aware of the equipment you're talking about, and this comes back to what I said earlier. I'm always looking for that weird thing that I can help somebody out provide. So, if we can coordinate well enough, because if somebody's, I forgot what they called it. It was, the Forellen star topology, phone networking thing. Because I think you could run it as a bus too, but
you definitely can, but I can't remember what the distance limit is.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't work if you have 10,000 spurs off the same line.
It may well not
throw off the impedance. So, but I know exactly the equipment you're talking about, and I think it would be I lack the expertise on the local talk and Apple Talk side, but from the standpoint of that device means all I'm doing is cross connecting pairs, I think it would be very doable.
Yeah, and I've got some relevant Apple Talk experience, and it sounds like some of the other folks here do too. So,
well, we will have Tom reach out, because he has the unobtainium, very expensive piece of equipment that has to be hooked up on the other side of it to make it happen. So that would be.
Don't worry, the idea suggestion fee will appear on your bill.
Oh yeah,
very nice.
Yeah,
Make sure
I do want to say
Tom.
that somebody had reached out to me. It is not a Tom, but somebody had reached out to me about doing this before the show. Unfortunately, it was 2 weeks before the show, and I'm I don't know if I have the time to figure that out necessarily, but yes, that could be done. So you've got at least one interested party, and it sounds like more than that. So maybe
Excellent.
It's an option we can add to the forum, and if you guys have your connections into the Macintosh community and do a better job at advertising that than I can, then we could maybe get some real usage out of it.
Gosh, if this really happens, I'll have to schlep my Apple IIgs down there. Those things have built-in local talk and Apple Talk support too. So,
I could see Scott Barrett with his he brings the Mac Lab.
Yeah,
and he puts all those
And
things
that's-
on Apple Talk. That would be incredible.
The idea, the ultimate kind of plan would be to have Scott's lab set up on this, where basically people at their booth could have a machine set up and have a huge game of Spectre VR, or have a huge game of Marathon running, or something like that. I think that would be really neat. And
Cool.
Yeah, it just
I
takes
can
planning.
imagine the hall echoing with the sound of hundreds of image writers.
I can bring an old poster from a previous job involving computer labs in a higher education setting that prominently says do not use the Apple Talk network to play games during peak periods. I think the physical rate on that thing is like maybe a couple hundred kilobits, and then overhead and.
Yeah. But the idea would be, I would love to be able to just park a printer at my desk or at my table, and then anybody that has a machine could run me out of paper, I guess. So
banners are
all of a sudden
Ron's computer videos table.
Yes, actually, it's funny. I used to work for I work in higher ed. I've worked in higher ed for a very, very long time, and I used to work at Southern Illinois University Carbondale. Go Salukis. And we bought a laser printer. It was like a Laser Writer 16600 or something. It was like a very high-end printer. We had two, whatever the maximum 500 sheet feeders and things like that. And the boss hooked it up on a Friday, and we went home, and we came back on Monday, and the printer was jammed because the network was just flat and open. And someone just went in there, renamed the printer I Love Paper, and proceeded to print completely black pages. Until it finally just jammed itself. So, good times. We'll see if we can get some of that action at VCF Midwest. But
it's funny. The linchpin at the very end of the show for us is a printer. It's the line printer that we run the bills on. And there is a point where it's like, okay, the printer must work.
Mm-hmm. Or dang it, go to the free pile and get another dot matrix printer real fast. This is the one time I want to see a dot matrix on the free pile.
Yes,
it can be direct print billing. You print it on the subscriber's printer.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
For a fee, of course.
Of course.
So we just need the CRM to talk Apple Talk, and then we'll just print all the bills on Ron's printer.
Absolutely. Why not?
That could be arranged.
I have a Apple Talk compatible laser printer, so that would be really fast, and man, just up in the quality on those bills going out too.
What do you mean? We already print in high speed draft.
I was thinking of the clip art. I'm just saying. But the next question I wanted to kind of ask was, do you have a favorite piece of equipment in your collection? And everybody can just chime in. What was it? It was something that you absolutely that you didn't know you wanted, but now that you've got it, it's your favorite.
Hands down, I have this piece of equipment. It's what runs my dial-up service, and it is called a Patent Electronics Dialfire 2960. It is powder-coated red. It is the 90s design aesthetic condensed into a 1U. The web interface for this has a repeating tiled marble print on it. This thing is a joy to administrate. Nothing on it ever works correctly. They're still in production. Patent Electronics will still sell you one. Mm-hmm. But it was one of those pieces of hardware that every time I look at that, it makes me smile, because it's this piece of equipment in the rack that it's powder-coated red. It's unique. It's weird. And it has a big light on the front of it that just says trouble.
Yeah. I guess for me, it's between, modern stuff, the D-Slam. I really like the little tiny Grand Slam. It's 1U of 24 ports of the finest ADSL2 that you can possibly imagine, which I should get working on the step switch. That'd be kind of funny.
Yes.
Second, the electromechanical thing, the ring machine I was talking about, that's the only one I know of in the world that works. That produces number 5 crossbar type ring, which I'm considering playing for you. I'm not sure how loud that would be. Hell, I got to try it. Let it spin up.
So far, it sounds like several songs off of The Wall.
Yes. I know somebody that has that ring machine, the British one. But yes, that is straight out of Detroit, Michigan, and in the early 90s that was ripped out, sat in a warehouse, and then I found a guy on Facebook that's like, I need to get rid of this.
Do you happen to know which CO?
I wish I did. I really wish I did.
Okay. Well, I'd have to say for me that piece of equipment is my Livingston Portmaster 3 terminal server. I have no idea whether it's the most interesting terminal server on the market. All I know is my first dial-up ISP in the early 90s, and they did not offer shell accounts. It was PPP framing. When you authenticated, that was it. But if, as I would do sometimes, just to see what would happen, if you dialed into it with your terminal emulator instead of your PPP client, well, the banner message would say, welcome to the name of company Livingston Portmaster 3 terminal server. And of course, I had no idea what that even meant. And I was, browsing around on eBay or something a couple, 3 years ago and saw a listing for one of those. And I went, oh, that must be what that thing. Oh, okay. And now, so I've got it set up. I got a couple T1s running to it from my telephony infrastructure. And you can dial in at 56K to that thing to your heart's content.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Who else?
Is there? Oh yeah. Anybody else?
I think I know Joe's potentially favorite piece of equipment. It might be Brown.
Yeah, I think we all do.
I think I've been trying to think of what
you could predict. It's the DNS.
I was trying to think of what my favorite piece of equipment is, and it's tough. It's kind of a toss up between two. One thing's really big, and one thing's really small. Thing that I have in common with Joe is I also have a bunch of Meridian 1 PBX hardware. And it runs all the phones at my house. In fact, this is the phone sitting at my desk. It wouldn't be my house if it didn't have a bunch of M2616 strewn about it. But if I had to pick a single thing, it's still in a box over here, but it's one of the old AT&T, analog cordless phones, from the late 80s. And that was literally my childhood. I used to live in California, and in the Loma Prieta earthquake, there was some discussion between, my parents on, I tried to call you, why didn't you answer? Because the phone network was still up. But my mom was like, well, we have a cordless phone in the house, so we didn't have power. That's why you couldn't call me. We had a corded phone in the garage, but it was a detached garage, so you would never hear it ring. I think that piece comes to mind as one of my favorite pieces, more for the nostalgia than anything else. And it still works, and it works just fine. In fact, I brought it to VCF Midwest for the last couple of years and kind of used it as the night mode operator. So you'd be walking around the floor and it would ring and you could answer. You can't do anything, can't transfer anybody. You can't really handle the call except say call back later. But.
Yeah, and for me, I have a lot of phone stuff, but it's all pretty common stuff. It's nothing really interesting. I'm sure the more VCFs I go to, the more time I spend with these people, that's going to change at some point. So my favorite thing isn't actually telecom related, if that's fine. Was what I picked up at VCF. What I picked up at VCF Southwest this year, which is actually on a rack under this table, is I took the generic cable guys to dinner one night, and we got to talking about stuff, and I said, I want to get the Weather Channel stuff. That was my jam in the 2000s, and so sitting in a rack down here is a WeatherStar XL that I picked up at VCF Southwest last year, and then I acquired an IntelliStar last year, and so I'm getting both of those running right now. So the WeatherStars are my favorite thing, but I'm sure I will continue to acquire more obscure phone stuff, and eventually maybe one of those will be my favorite. So we'll see.
Nice.
I think another contender for me is the Cisco ISR 2900 series, not because it's unique, not because it's special, but because they're the workhorse of just transporting any protocol you want to any protocol you want.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine my network without an ISR because they're just the Swiss Army knife of both voice and data.
Yeah, they do a decent job at so many things from a networking standpoint. Yeah, they're not perfect. They're not the most featureful all the time. There are bugs, there are things that are broken, there are things that you'd be like, well, why doesn't that work? And it just doesn't. But
they will not correctly route Apple Talk over PPP, but
that's one of them. And you can't do pulse dial over a T1 trunk. That's another one. And
I forgot about that one.
Found out the hard way.
There's there's a few things that it's like it won't do it. It doesn't have it does. It's not like, I mean, can be a PBX, but like by the time you involve call manager, I'm like, that's packets. I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So natively in the TDM side and the circuit switch side, it doesn't have like, calling features like three-way callings. It's not really a PBX in that a sense. So it's like there are things it does very well, and it does a lot of things okay as well. So very versatile piece of equipment. I think everybody on the call has one or more of some kind of piece of Cisco equipment in that vein, either an ISR or an IAD or what's the other one?
Anything of the voice gateway series?
VGs.
No, I'm thinking of whatever. I don't know. Exhausted, you've got one. It was
the
weird
MCG.
Oh, the 3810.
Yeah, the MCs.
Oh, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
Late 90s. Surprisingly, still pretty useful. The boot time is it feels like 20 minutes when you're sitting there on the floor with a serial cable. But
do we know what the MC stood for on those model numbers? Like media something, maybe? I don't even know if they
Media
called
converter?
it media. Maybe media converter. That's probably it. Yeah.
More circuits.
Yes.
Maldridge, you've got an AS, right? Access.
Yeah, I have an AS5300, and that's what serves the terminal services for Southwest. Because I did not want to deal with the dial fire can do multi-personality dial-in service and do a radius lookup to figure out who you are and what service you're supposed to get, which does work. But yes, make cash.
I bet it did too.
The AS5300, which takes let me grab one because it's sitting right behind me. Takes.
I have never played with an AS. I gotta rectify that someday.
Or comically large line cards.
Crocodile Dundee. Now that's a line card.
Yeah.
It takes these massive line cards, which you just don't even bother trying to send one through the mail. It will get destroyed. Weird old Cisco hardware. It's the network glue that holds all of these things together. I mean, even at so this last year, because Southwest and Southeast were on the same weekend, we had some Cisco glue running between the shows, so you could dial long distance between the show in Dallas and the show at Southeast.
Wow. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can get IP to TDM, any interfaces. If you want to go from an E&M trunk to a T1 to SIP to H223 or whatever, they do those functions fairly well.
Did you have your long distance billing set up correctly?
Yes, unfortunately, no one had the foresight to subscribe to a long distance plan. So they were billed at the per minute rate for trunk usage.
I remember calling in to Southwest from the outside and confusing somebody who answered your phone.
Oh, that was funny.
I'm not there. They're like, "What table are you at?" I'm like, "I'm not at a table."
It took us the person you got a hold of, trying to explain to us, it took us 5 minutes before we figured out it was you calling in from outside the show. Of course, right? Yes, I thought it must have been somebody from Southeast, and I was could not figure it out.
you talking about the call I picked up, or am I thinking of something else?
No, you're thinking of a different call. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, this was another time. Okay. Because the same thing happened this year at Midwest. It was, where are you? Oh, what table are you at? Okay. Now I'm calling from California. Oh, it's you.
Yeah.
And see, it doesn't even take a VCF for us to do this. We had our local DFW retro computing meetup yesterday, and Maldridge walks over to my table, and he's on a cordless phone talking to somebody who's dialing from Joe's DMS.
No, I was talking to Joe.
Oh, you're talking to Joe.
I powered up. Maldridge posts in our IRC channel. He's like, if anybody's, with SCDP, which is our private network that we've got between all of us, he's like, if anybody wants to call this number range, the equipment's up. And at some point I called, and I'm like, well, the easiest thing for me to do that is to just turn on the hardware I bring to VCFMW and like trunk it back in with the house network, because that's what's set up and configured right now. So I like booted all that up and called them. So I'm like, phone on the Meridian, hopping over to a Cisco ISR, going out over H323 IP to a router, to a switch, to a trunk back to my home network through that router, out over a VPN mesh doing BGP that probably that went to Anthony's house to bounce through his ISR, because that's what my trunk is, and then out to Maldridge to
Another VPN tunnel.
over another couple of VPN tunnel hops out to his Cisco ISR at the show at their meetup and ring a phone there.
Yeah, so that call between Chicago and Dallas hairpinned through Virginia.
Yep.
It's like that scene in Sneakers, you know, with the. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I'd
And
love to
honestly,
find
you
somebody
wouldn't
who could
really
make me a prop map of the show network.
That would be, yeah, that would be great. I have
Yeah.
zero visual design skills, but yeah.
Have you ever played the video game Uplink with the? It has all the little ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
You need that. And you can route through all these different servers, and it makes this boing noise when you do it.
So, related question to the craziness of the layers of all that networking you had to do to make that happen. It makes me wonder, with all the shows you've been doing, is there a particular piece of equipment or configuration or whatever you want to call it that gives you trouble every single time? And when you have to start working on that part, you're like, please, God, no, can we not have to do this year?
All right, Joe, Anthony, say it with me. MTU.
Well, MTU this
Oh,
year.
yeah.
I think last year it was firewalls.
Yeah, firewalls always suck.
But yeah, T-Mobile has. So our network is crazy enough that. So I'm going to nerd out a little bit here. When BGP sends an update message, it sets do not fragment. And we finally had a big enough, like when you're learning the tables for the first time, the message is big enough that it exceeded the MTU that T-Mobile would permit. And of course, the tunnel's not aware of that. So you see the BGP session come up, but then you don't learn any routes. And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And it took a few hours before Maldridge made the comment, I wonder if it's MTU. And then we kind of walked away from it for a minute, and I was thinking I go, well, let me start testing. And so I'm testing around, and I found the ceiling of like 1370 or something. I'm like, holy shit, I think it's this. And so I go tweak the VPN tunnel to lower MTU to 1370, and boom, you got 100 routes now.
Yeah, so it's so much of the time, it's that the stuff we bring to the show comes up on the first try. Because this has all been powered up for weeks in advance. We've tested it. We know it works. But part of the cool part of the network is the external connectivity and the fact that, with the right access codes, you can dial out.
Yeah.
And that depends on a huge amount of other equipment that we don't even put on the show diagrams for how that works. And that's what breaks all the time.
When you go digging into, I do have a diagram of VCFMW's network on my website, which I can provide the link at some point, but there are some things in there that are just clouds.
Yeah.
Like don't worry about this for a moment. And the big, so one of them is the outside plant network, which like all the actual cabling gets its own diagram. Like, here's how that works. That's its own diagram. Because if I put it in this one's complicated enough already. And then you get to like, okay, like here's the internet cloud. And then there's like, but there's 3 little clouds in that because there's stuff running on top of the internet that also has vast amounts of detail that doesn't belong in this diagram. Like, I have connectivity to the CNET collectors network, which is also private voice over IP network, to our private network. And then somewhere in there's a little cloud for the PSTN, because using all of that ridiculous stuff I mentioned before, my single analog phone line that I have at home gets transported over voice over IP to the show. And if you call the operator, we can place calls out to the PSTN over my personal phone line. So there are a few people who did this. They called the operator, and then they give me their cell phone or, the cell phone of a friend or family member or something, and I pull out my little notebook and write down the number because I can't remember 10 digits. And place their call for them. I make sure to put them on hold so they get the brief bit of hold music while I'm placing the call, and so that kind of stuff all the time. But there was last year a good story about equipment not working. So
Oh yeah.
we had. So my Meridian, when I first got it, it still had the old config on it, and at the time we hadn't developed all the resources to figure out how to just reinstall the software on the Meridian. So I basically took the configuration that existed from when it was last in service, deleted everything, and built it back up. But my system had some ghosts in it, and one of the things you can do with analog lines is set up a hunt group where you've got 8 lines or something, and you have one number you call, and it just picks the least recently used line, and all you have to do is know the one number that gets the group. So we ran into, when Anthony and I were setting up the week before last year's show, and we were he was running through testing all the lines, and he got to some that didn't work, and we were like, okay, well, it's like a bad line on the line card or something. We changed line cards and the problem doesn't go away. And we I forget the exact sequence, but we eventually determined
everything.
Yeah. So first of all, on the hardware side, we literally swapped every single piece of hardware we possibly could, and the problem still existed. We changed the line card. We moved the lines to another physical slot, reprovisioned them. And they, it still did that. We were like, okay, well, maybe there's something wrong with this. I've got 2 cabinets, there's the primary cabinet and the expansion cabinet, and maybe the expansion cabinet hardware is something wrong there. So we change out the fiber transceiver card. We change out, I had just been given all new, I had been given a second system of the same type. We literally changed out the cabinet, and it still wouldn't work right. And I'm like, the only thing, we changed, literally we're down to the point where it's we changed the cabinets, the power supplies. We're down to the main master, control card. They call it the SSC. It's the card that has the CPU. It's actually running the system. I changed that out. I was able to move the memory over because it's like a daughter board, and it still had the problem. We just were like, okay, well, that's literally every single piece of hardware. This must be a software problem. We're not going to reinstall the system in a week here. And at the end of the day, it's the way it manifested is you've got a hunt group of 6 lines. One of them goes busy and just doesn't work. Okay, whatever. It's one line. Probably nobody will even notice. The one person who did notice, I commend them for actually going through and testing all of their lines and complaining that, hey, one of my lines doesn't work. And we said, we know. Yeah, it's not going to work. I'm going to fix it next year. So one of the things I did between that year and this year is I totally reinstalled the software on the PBX, built up the configuration completely from scratch again, which it was kind of due for it. You get a configuration, you modify several years in a row, and eventually you're like, maybe I should do this, 1, now that I know how this works better, and 2, document it better so I don't have to reverse engineer it every year.
And Joe,
I thought you were going to say,
I don't know how it is on the Meridian, but it sounds maybe similar. I know on the Definity line of PBXs, there is no clear all configuration command or anything like that.
No.
Yeah, the best you can do on the Definity is you pull the translations card.
Yeah.
And then you put it back in and you write your blank default translations. But
can you do that? I think I might have known that, and I forgot all about it. Yes. Yeah.
You have to make sure you know how to get rid of the licensing if it has it. And just do that, kids at home.
That's right.
Do your research.
Yeah, if you have all of the stuff you need to get the licensing back, that's the easiest way. If you don't, then you're kind of stuck.
Speaking of things that worked at home and didn't work, or at least yours was more, it didn't work at all. But remember the DSL thing this year when we were playing with TVP working, and I had gotten a new donation of basically I think it was almost 20 Action Tech DSL modems that were perfect for what we're doing. They have little switches in them. You turn the Wi-Fi off because that would just make even more Wi-Fi pollution. Everybody's going to be really great. We're all going to have exactly the same modem. We're all going to have PPPoE because that's technically the right way to do it. Great. Worked at home, tested the hell out of it. Great. Get to VCF. I hook the first modem up, which is on at home. It was on port 1. At VCF Midwest is on port 24, our test modem. And
I had provisioned that line to you to your Shady rate for the purpose of testing DSL modems. It was like the last one at the end of the connector. So,
and I plugged this modem in, and DNS doesn't work at all. But you can ping stuff. Well, that's a problem. Nobody remembers every website's IP address. That's we don't have the phone book of IP addresses available here.
Distribute a host file.
Right. Let's try another modem. Okay, it works with the modems that I have 2 of, but not the modems I have 20 of. DSL might be screwed this year. We ended up trying all kinds of stuff. We replaced the config. We replaced I brought my own ISR. We tried that ISR. Everything looks exactly the same between the 2 configs and the ISRs. Like there's literally nothing different with the thing that worked at home. Why is it not working with either ISR? Finally start comparing the stuff in the Grand Slam's web interface, and it all looks the same. Oh, wait a minute. Port 1 has DSL power management turned on. Port 2 doesn't, through 24 doesn't. Turns out if you don't turn DSL port management or power management on, which if you read the manual just says it controls the power level of the DSL signal somehow to save power, I don't know. You can't have DNS on an Action Tech modem.
Yeah.
Who'd have known?
I mean, this was also in the period of time where you have to understand the show network is glued together out of 5 or 6 different routers. There's a massive BGP mesh that has to conform in the middle of the show. That I was just dumping traffic from half of these on the floor because their NAT ranges weren't in my firewall. And so
that was the first thing we had to solve.
Yeah.
We're like, we can't get out to the internet. I'm like, hey, did you ever put those ranges into your NAT pool? Like at some point, I'm like, because I got to I can't ping it from my ISR directly, which is where the PPPoE was coming out of for the DSLAM. And it was like, I can ping other stuff on the network, but I can't ping out to the internet. And then at some point of the light bulb, I'm like, hey, you never set up NAT, did you?
No.
I think that power management thing and MTU are the most weirdest things.
It is wild that the circuit switched and the TDM stuff just works. It's only the IP stuff that reliably breaks.
Well, hell, even the step switch, it had been sitting in my garage an entire year. Like I haven't made a single call on it. It was sitting in boxes and outside almost. It's in the garage. Plugged in and it just worked. I didn't even adjust the wipers.
That's impressive.
Well, even at VCF Southwest this year, I think, Joe, we had the CO energized within 45 minutes. We had tone out within 3 hours to almost all subscribers. And then day 2 of the show, somebody pulls a Linksys off the free table, plugs it in the wrong way around to the exhibitor network, and starts backfeeding DHCP to the span.
Oh, no.
It's always the IP network that
My
breaks.
nightmares come true. Oh,
Yeah.
that's never happened to me in my professional career 5,000 or 6,000 times.
The funny thing though is we were like, we at the first we didn't know who had done this or what they had done. We just knew there was DHCP pollution going on, and we're like, as we were walking out to go to dinner that night, passing by the free pile at Southwest, and I saw this big stack of Linksys routers on the free pile, and I just said, I bet you somebody grabbed one of those Linksys routers off the free pile and plugged it in the wrong way around. And I said it half as a joke. And then the next day, lo and behold, somebody, fessed up and said, yeah, we were the ones. We forgot you can't do that with consumer grade routers that turn DHCP. Like they just needed a switch, right? But they didn't turn off the DHCP. And so it was like literally like walking past it. I'm like, I bet somebody did that. And sure enough, that is exactly what they did.
It's easy to fix that. You go over there to the free pile with a pair of needle nose pliers, and you reach in the power connection, and you pull out that little center pin. Problem solved.
Yep.
Or you remember to set
router will
DHCP
never
guard.
hurt
That works
another
too.
person again.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of getting to the end here, folks. We've held you a long time. I've got one last question, and then we'll throw back to Joe, and we'll get questions from the audience. But Whimsy as has been discussed, plays a big part of sort of kind of how people interact with ShadyTel and how people perceive you guys, that it's all in fun and we're having a good time. To that, is Opus number 1 an appropriate song for a wedding?
I don't know, because it brings back that's related to IP, not TDM. We want some
we want crappy hold music. Wave.
I think the song that's appropriate for a wedding is Magic on Hold.
Yes, I would agree.
Exactly.
I would agree.
Yeah. Or along the theme of telephone related songs, 1-800 by the Dog Police.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That would be good dance music at a reception. Yeah.
See, now, Ron, you got me thinking that it's like, I don't know if my wife is still watching this, but it would have been really funny that it's like I'm standing there like, okay, it's about to happen, and we play Opus number 1 while we wait for the bride to appear. It's like, okay, everybody wait.
Oh
Right.
no.
Yeah.
It's the default bride waiting music,
Yeah.
It's
Okay, but it's not for CUCME. CUCME
True.
came with unique hold music,
It did.
which I think is much better than Opus number 1. Though I will tell you, the weirdest experience I have ever had was hearing the San Francisco Philharmonic play Opus number 1.
Yes.
Wow. They did a recital of various well-known computer music, and hearing them do Opus number 1, the Windows XP sign-on chime, hearing the entire brass section hit the Apple boot note, very weird auditory experience.
You got to do Canyon and Passport.mid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a little bit on a tangent, but from the standpoint of whimsy at the show, if you've been to VCFMW, you see we run telephone poles for the telephone wiring, which is just absolutely, I mean, it has a practical purpose, but that dates back to, I think, 2022. We basically there's one place in the whole venue at VCFMW in 2022 where I needed to cross an aisle, and it was a high traffic area, and I didn't want to deal with taping it down or whatever, and so we took 2 lighting stands and stretched a 4-pair cable across the place overhead to get the phone at the CENTCOM table, the VCFMW staff area. That went so much further last year, when we first did the telephone poles for the first time, at scale. And I'm doing all this metal working in my garage. It originally started as we need a way to cross the aisles that isn't a big trip hazard. And I'm well, we can go overhead. And my original plan was to build a truss, a thing that goes up and, rigid thing over and down and kind of lash the cable to it. And it kind of turned into well, maybe we could do telephone poles. And I'm nah, you need so many pounds of ballast to do that. But it quickly became once it became man, I probably could do this. It was well, now I have to do it because it's just so ridiculous. But it's also gotten to be a lot of work. I had 2,000 pounds of sand and bricks and ballast. Some of the ballasts were actually fluorescent lamp ballasts, so inside the buckets.
Well, there was that point when we were loading in with Dr. Ann Balsamo and her students who were going to help us do load in, and we're looking at the big prints. These are actual large drawings that show where everything goes on the floor, and I think Joe and I are there with the high-vis vests on. Anthony has his hard hat on, and we're explaining so on the drawing schedule, this is the side of the pole the ballast goes on, and this is how many pounds you need to have. And she just says to us, "Oh, this is real engineering."
Yeah,
so
I'm over here doing, cable catenary tension calculations and lever torque moments to figure out I need 200 pounds of ballast on this one because there's 3 cables, but this other one I only need 100 pounds of ballast because there's only 2, and
it's very high energy whimsy.
Yeah. I enjoyed the brick loading the bricks into your trailer and then bringing them back to your house and backing up the driveway and realizing we're one safety chain width away from scraping.
Yeah, so hang on. We're going to pull the safety chains apart, and then you back up.
You missed it last year when I did the emergency run to Menards for more bricks.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're putting bricks on the telephone poles and realizing that pile is getting smaller faster than we thought it would. And it's like, crap, Menards closes in 20 minutes. Anthony, here's my car keys.
Yep, let's go. I'm just
Wow.
doing I don't think I took my vest off. I just ran through Menards to the back where the bricks were.
Somebody like flags you down. They're like, "Sir, can you help me?" I'm like, "I don't work here."
Well, with a vest that says ShadyTel on it.
So shady business.
Right.
So we have several questions from the audience. I think it's a good time now to drop those questions to you guys. The first one is from CDI, which is right up your alley, and I will try to pronounce these terms as best as I can. Quote, what version LSOG does ShadyTel use so I know what LSR I can submit and avoid Nightfire for your LNP or any dry copper orders?
Okay, so I know the first two of those terms. And the answer, of course, is that ShadyTel uses our own proprietary LSOG. And you have to buy that standard from us. So, you'll have to reach out by email and we'll the quote will cost you some money too. So we'll have to figure this all out. Everything is a la carte. So if you need to know how much the standard costs, well, we have to go look that up. There's a fee associated with that. And of course, any billing comes with a billing fee, the paperless transaction, the paperless billing fee, or what is it, Maldred? The paperless
It's the paperless transmission fee followed by the bill printing fee. Because it is paperlessly transmitted to our printing facility. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Feel free to reach out. Sales engineering will be in touch.
Yeah, so for those who don't know the telephony terms, and this is one I actually just recently learned, the LSOG and LSR, or the LSR is something like a local service request, and LSOG is like local service ordering guidelines. So there's actually a telephone company standard for the forms upon which you submit orders, and standardized nationally by the ATIS, I think it's like the American Telecommunication something. They're a standards committee, and there's also an access, which is for the long distance companies, the ASOG and the ASRs. And I dealt with this because I'm doing a little bit of consulting, helping a company exit the long distance business. So they are trying to figure out how they submit the right ASRs to do the things they need to migrate their trunks over somewhere else. And it's like, it's kind of, I understand why it exists, but it is like, seriously, you can't figure this out unless somebody has taught you it, or you go buy the standard and read it. And yes, you have to buy the standard to know how you can place orders.
Yes.
For sure.
Nice.
And local number portability. What's that?
Your numbers aren't portable.
Yeah, we don't.
No.
Yeah, there is not any local number portability at
Well,
VCF.
We'll accept port ins, but we will not do port outs.
Yes, that is correct.
They're bad for business.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Everything is Broken Garage. He asks, how many on the crew own a Commodore rotary phone?
I don't know that any of us do, because I think Commodore Z bought them all. Commodore Z has subscribed to SneakyNet dial tone before to use with the Commodore rotary phone, but I don't know that any of us have them.
Not I.
Several of
don't.
our Canadian friends in our Macintosh group have them, and they lord them over us constantly.
Yeah.
And of course, Everything is Broken Garage is one of those, so that's why he brings
Yeah.
up the question. We know who you are, Ryan.
No, see,
No.
why would I want that? I have a phone of high fashion. I have a Nortel Contempra clad in Italian leather.
Ooh.
Oh my giddy aunt! Yes, I love it. Yes, I thought the red Meridian phones were rare.
Yeah,
I
the
have
story
one of those.
behind that one is a friend of ours found the leather phone at e-waste, and basically told Maldridge, this needs to go back to Texas.
Yes.
This is the Apple version of the Commodore phone.
Yes. Yes.
I had a
Yeah.
client who worked for. They were a what's the term? They were a pizza chain, basically. Yes, that.
Ooh.
And
Yes.
Yeah.
This
There was
is
a
I
Papa
bought
John's pizza chain, and they all
I-
had those in the stores for some reason. They were just the red ones. It was weird.
This was on my table at Southwest with a sign that said "The Papa John's phone."
Yes.
Because I bought this on the consignment table at SoCal for $5. And it has been a permanent fixture of my exhibit at Southwest every year because Maldridge brings his BCM, and this works with the VCM. So
Yeah.
I love
I guess
this.
I do have the famous step switch demo phone right next to me.
Yes.
And what's a big honking switch that people not sure what it does, and then they pick it up at the same time and it doesn't work.
Follow-up question. Ryan asks, will VoIP ever be retro?
Yes. And
Yes.
I can tell you why, because Cisco Call Manager, or the what was the company that made it before Cisco bought it, Call Manager is older than the iMacs, some of the iMacs. So the early versions of Call Manager, and you can put VoIP in a Meridian. You can put VoIP in a ton of PBXs that existed well before anything modern. You added line cards for VoIP.
This is a card for a Definity for adding IP media resources, also known as H323.
Yeah.
I would
So-
take the card out of my Meridian, but it's actually in service, so I can't do that.
Yeah. And it's like even the BCM 50, it'll do VoIP. It does Nortel's weird proprietary standard that's never been reverse engineered. So I have
Yeah.
a set of IP phones that only work with specific
Unisym.
Nortel equipment. Yeah.
And for the DMS, so the DMS 100 family of switches, you see some of that equipment behind me. On the other side where you can't see it, there's a whole second aisle. And some of the equipment over there is the CS2000, or technically a CS2100 in my case, which is the add all this stuff, and now your DMS does VoIP.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, the standards are always changing. So H323 was like going to be the big VoIP standard, and it probably kind of was in more like backbone and business. But these days, everything moved to SIP. So like, who's using H323 anymore, right? Well, we are, because we're trunked all over the place over our mesh network with, friggin' Cisco ISR is doing H323 everywhere.
Well, the nice thing about H323 is the signaling it's basically the same signaling as PRI.
Yeah, it's uses the same signaling as ISDN, which is inherently like the way the traditional telephone network worked once it went all digital, right? ISDN is even used underlying in SS7 for the like call setup. They call it, ISUP, ISDN user part. So they were like designed hand in hand to be the underlying way that calls get set up and torn down. So H323 is like the logical extension of the real phone network to voice over IP, as opposed to SIP, which is somebody who did like web stuff, probably HTTP from every little bit of SIP that I don't fully understand, but it's like
it's 200. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
The way the responses and requests work, it feels very much like somebody who didn't really have experience with the real phone network saying, "Yeah, I could do that," and designing it around, the website of things that they did have experience with.
Well, and then you get into some of, because I have the hardware to do this. There was, so the BCM50, which uses Unistem and the other Nortel equipment in that line, there are no wireless Unistem phones, but wait, Nortel had the 2210 wireless handset, for which, of course, you need a Nortel 2245 WLAN telephony gateway. These were sold and licensed per telephone that you were going to connect to them. That starts to get into all kinds of weird retro shenanigans of like, those were technically white labeled by Spectra Voice, and so If you have ever been deep in the Cisco WLAN or controller for a WLC, and you find that checkbox that says Spectra Voice Priority, that's what that's for. The phone can scream into the void with a special layer 1 radio frame that causes all of the APs to shut up and give absolute priority to the telephone. So I'd say there's a lot of VoIP that you could argue was retro when it shipped, because it just was the kind of thing that it was built for a one-off customer. It used dated concepts at the time, and now good luck figuring it out.
Yeah, and on the topic of VoIP becoming retro, you could do voice over IP over frame relay circuits. And I have played with this. The Cisco ISR completely supports this. You have to build out a whole like policing profile, and you have to classify your voice traffic so that you don't overcommit the frame relay circuit and affect your voice calls. You can use some very, very low quality codecs to conserve bandwidth. Yeah.
Everybody's favorite G, was it G729 is the bad one?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's not the worst.
G729 and
I think the Cisco does LPC, which is
that's
like
pretty bad,
300
yeah.
kilobits or something.
Sounds like Iridium, right?
Yes.
Might be the same codec. Yeah, I don't know. Bitrate
Yeah, they
sounds
do.
similar.
G729 is bad, but GSM is a little worse, and LPC is the worst. Like
I
out
never
of all
got
the
LPC
codecs.
working.
Okay,
But
I know
it
we
is
were playing
supported by
around with a few of those, but yeah, there's a lot of them supported by the Cisco ISRs, and some of them are like really low bit rate.
Yep.
Interesting little fact about voice over IP over frame relay. I believe that in the Nextel push to talk system, not the interconnect call system, just the interconnect. I mean, just the push to talk. I believe that traffic was actually distributed over IP over frame relay too, which for back then is a little surprising. But
yeah, the whole of the Nextel network was
pretty
strange
weird,
and weird.
Yeah.
Cool. So we next question, and I've been wondering the answer to this question myself as well. Has anyone actually paid their ShadyTel bill?
Yes.
Yes.
Not like the amount on the bill, but in the process of handing out bills, I actually had somebody so first of all, I'm always sure to kind of go up to people and say, if I don't know them and I don't know they get the shtick, it's like, all right, here's your novelty telephone bill. Like, they need to understand, yes, you're not expected to pay this. This is a souvenir. It's a fun, cool thing we do. We get to hand out bills. All right, whatever. But no, you're not expected to pay this. But one guy was like, you guys really should be taking money. And I'm like, well, I'll accept a donation to VCFMW, on the show's behalf. And he handed me a $100 bill, and I went and took it up to the front and dropped it in the Spark station. So, and so I'll consider that paying your bill. And then also somehow last year we found like 42 cents at our table that was totally unaccounted for. And so we declared that somebody like somehow we made money in this endeavor. Like somebody left some spare change at our table by mistake, and we're like, yep, all right. Yeah, that's revenue.
On the topic of telling people, so for some reason, obviously I was kind of rushed towards the end there. I'm like, I gotta get these bills out. So I kind of forgot to tell people that they were fake a few times. And a couple people were like, oh my God, how am I going to pay this? And I'm like, well, don't pay it.
Use your VCF Midwest fun bucks.
Right.
Something that's important to understand, and I think Joe and I have had the same opinion on this for a long time, is that the shows operate as 501c3s. VCF Midwest and VCF Southwest are nonprofit entities. And what we do as ShadyTel and SneakyNet only exists because the show continues to exist. So if you want to make a donation, if you want to pay, it doesn't go to the phone company, take it to the show, because they're the group that enables this craziness. And yes, Kyle, I am calling you an enabler.
We all enable each other. I mean,
yes,
peer pressure is real.
Yeah.
Yes. The bills are intentionally set up so that they are so high that no one should construe them as an actual bill. I mean, we billed the show something like $8,500 for a billing defined network.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, this is the VCF Southwest bill that we were given by
Sneaky Net.
Net. Thank you. And it
Yep.
was $9,065.47. So, yeah.
Bargain! I'll have to raise the rate next year.
My favorite, of course, is the inconvenience fee. It is, classic.
Yes.
Half the fun of building is coming up with new innovative fees. Kyle, next year we definitely got a franchise fee of $4.62, right?
Yes, absolutely. And then my other favorite too is we were all staying late, and AJ of Forgotten Machines was also staying late, and we went and made a Culver's run at one point, and we called AJ on the show phone, on his booth phone, and he was like, "What do you want?" Because he had said earlier to get in on the order, so he tells us, and then we brought his food to him. When we went and picked it up. So we added the Culver's delivery charge onto his bill as well.
Yes. And at Southwest, we did a similar thing. AJ had a touch-tone telephone that had a mistuned dial pad. And we were able to get it tuned up at the show, and I assisted with that. So I go back to Maldridge, and nobody's telling him we're going to do this. And I'm like, all right, we got to put in a special fee for AJ for telephone tuning service.
Yeah.
And so it appeared as a line item.
Yeah. We have a lot of fun with the fees, especially if there are unique ones. Like at Midwest, June from Nibbles and Bites installed her own telephone connection. So, of course, she was assessed a self-install surcharge.
Yeah.
Yes.
I went to go do her pod,
I went to go do her pod, and she's like, "Oh, let me help. Let me run this." And I said, "Well, conveniently, this is your table." So then I went right back to Maldridge and said, "Hey, got to put that on the bill." So,
yeah.
She tried to hand me back her bill.
We got to add a bill dispute fee.
Yeah, I had. We do interlec billing too, so I hand Maldridge a bill and he hands me a bill, and everybody hands each other bills, right? We'll go back a minute, but Evan, I printed some labels for him that said like property of Incompetel, and on his bill there is a line item. Yeah, on his bill there's a line item for premium label printing services.
What I also enjoy is Evan gave me a business card, which I'll cover up the phone numbers on there, but he is the president of Incompetel, so I had to include that as well.
Yeah,
Incompetel, it's in the name.
Hey, if you guys are taking suggestions for pricing, those Apple Talk links need to cost $19.85. That's the connection fee, because this is 2025 is the 40th anniversary of Apple Talk. So
that may be the service fee, but of course there'll also be a copper plant utilization fee, a LEC surcharge recovery fee, a bill and keep fee,
special service provisioning,
all the usual fees. The fee FIFO FUM fee.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, there needs to be something
fee?
like the insecticide, because we had to treat the apples fee.
Yes.
Harvest.
Oh yes.
The orchard fee.
Yeah, and of course there's the another dollar won't hurt fee, which we had to increase the cost this year, unfortunately, to $1.05 due to inflation.
Yeah, I fear it may be $1.10 by the time we get to VCF Southwest this year.
Well, maybe it should be $1.11. You got to do the compounding rate.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You start rounding those fractional pennies.
Yeah. We all know where that leads.
We have one final question, and I think this is a super awesome question, and that is, has anyone at the shows tried to hack the phone system?
You would not believe how much effort we put in to make it possible to hack the phone system.
So that's your hint, everybody. Start having fun.
So
The network is good to play with.
Yeah, so there are people who do war dialing. There are people who do prank calling. It gets a little old the fourth time the operator gets rickrolled. Have some creativity. But we have, we have trunks you can blue box. We have hidden services that don't appear in the directory. We have things that are meant for you to find. It's there for you to play with.
Somebody in a previous year, once upon a time, I just provision all the numbers in order, and they were like, you can kind of read between the lines, quite literally, and say, there's a gap here. I wonder what that phone number is.
Yeah. There is some stuff that we prefer people don't poke at. I mean, the IP network is pretty much off limits because the show itself depends on that working. And so it's like, don't be malicious, don't break stuff, because then you're just messing it up for everybody else. Yeah.
Like, don't leak out onto my POTS line and place 900 calls. I'm pretty sure they're blocked, but hey, you never know. Still.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that. I do put real access controls in place on the phone system. So I actually have tiers of class of service. So, the exhibitors are in one class of service. Staff get access to a little more. And then ShadyTel, central office phones can place calls out my POTS line without having to do anything special, Right.
And so while I'm not aware of any actual real security holes in the system, I mean, if you find them, don't do anything malicious. Maybe come let me know about them so I can see if I could fix them if they're a serious thing. But
Yeah. We'll put a bug bounty fee on your bill. You pay us.
White yes. White hat fees for everything.
Yes.
I mean, because the satisfaction of finding a vulnerability, that's really worth something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you got to pay.
Yeah. But it is one of those things where, we've talked in the past about, what would it take for you to be able to blue box on the network, whistle a 2600 hertz tone using, either your Moog synthesizer, your Captain Crunch whistle, or, maybe you just have perfect pitch and you're that good. Whatever your means of choice is, it turns out making a single frequency trunk work is really a lot harder than most people realize. That starts to be the kind of thing where we have to bring specialist equipment, make a routing loop so that your call goes over it, and then it'll work. But we want people to be able to.
Hopefully soon over frickin' lasers, maybe.
Yes.
I do.
Sorry, Kyle. I interrupted you.
No, you're good. One thing I did see in the chat was Veronica Explains asked about, do y'all have a regular line simulator you recommend for folks that just want to connect a few things together at home? I know that's any people watching this might be wondering, hey, how do I get started in this? What can I go on? And I see Silent 700 already answered with the answer I would have given, which is go on Marketplace or wherever and find a cheap Panasonic key system, PBX, ESAphone, KX, something. You can find them for almost nothing. Adrian Black just did a video on this where he got a very inexpensive Panasonic key system and was plugging a bunch of stuff into it. So that is a great way to get started for very little money. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
The key word is get started.
Yeah. You got to keep going with it. But another good one is just to get your feet wet. It's very cheap to get an unlocked, emphasis on unlocked, has to be a not either one you can unlock or one that is not associated to any particular carrier, but get a SIP ATA. There are all sorts of them out there. They're not that expensive, and set it up with asterisk. And, that's very cheap.
The Grandstream ones are pretty good because they support rotary phones, so some of them do. Some of them see there.
The handy tone units, the HT806s and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's important to make sure you get one that's not locked to a particular carrier, or that there is an exploit to unlock it from, or else you're going to get one that has the suffix for Vonage or the suffix for,
Ring
I don't know
Central
who
or
else there is.
something.
Ring
And you
Central,
won't be
yeah,
able to
something-
use it on your own
Yep.
equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be locked to that provider because they take a loss on the hardware to get you to buy the service, and they don't want you reusing the hardware because then people would just get the hardware and cancel the service, right? So
And-
the Panasonic systems are very plug and play, and the only one last one I'll give is the Cisco ISRs. They're a little more configuration heavy, but they are very versatile systems. You will find another use for them in your network if you do anything with networking. They've got analog cards. They're not amazing in features and quality. They don't ring a ringer phone so great, but yeah, they work pretty well to support a bunch of weird stuff.
And I do want to kind of add, as an electromechanical person, that likes simple things. This is not well. Simple's a relative
Simple.
term. Simple,
Yeah, exactly.
Simple. How many? I got to hold this up. 'Cause I did bring it over for the show and tell possibilities. How many relays are in here? Just a couple. It's no big deal. But if you just want two phones to talk to each other, you can take two phones and break the tip lead between, or hook them together, open the tip lead up and put a 9-volt battery in series, and they will talk to each other.
Yeah.
So you can even start as simple as that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that in there. Simples are, it's funny because I use so many telephone related things and I haven't really thought about how the actual voice part works. It's like, oh yeah, you could just kind of put things in series and current flows and you could talk to each other. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't need a
Signaling
fancy
and
device.
switching where it gets complicated. Yeah.
Everyone needs to go to GovDeals and bid on the closest DMS 100.
Yes.
That's where you start.
No.
The
We already
better the
have
phone
those.
system, the better it is.
Somebody needs to get a DCO, an AXE, a DEX, and somebody really needs to get a 4E. So look for the odd ones, guys. Come on, we need more of the unique ones saved.
Oh, come on, I got a GTD 5 down the road.
Yeah, that's another one. GTD 5. Yeah, somebody get a GTD 5.
Do we know of any preserved 4Es? I don't think I do.
No.
Oh, AT&T is preserving a lot
Oh,
of them.
yeah, I meant, yeah.
For now,
For
they
now.
grandfathered long distance. Those are not long for the world. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I really hope somebody gets a hold of it, at least one. But yeah, they're getting rid of their long distance service, and they're pretty much the only ones that have any.
TDM switch, for what it's worth, first production digital switch.
Yeah.
In the U.S., maybe. I think
Probably.
there were European switches that predated.
Which is interesting to say, introduced in 1976, still in production in 2025 in some capacity.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the interesting things to me about the traditional public switch telephone network is the equipment was designed to run forever. And you upgraded the equipment as technology evolved, but you did it with zero downtime.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
all
This
interoperated. New cards, old cards.
Yeah, this system behind me, installed in 1984, upgraded through the years. They finally took it out of service in 2019. So that's, what is that, a 35-year service life?
Yeah, compared to the average service life of a Kubernetes cluster, which is, I think, about 30 minutes before something breaks?
Yeah.
Well, one last thing I do want to mention is
swaps on those anyway.
one last thing I do want. Speaking of lifespan, is that when the Pacific Palisades fire, a certain person on this stream got a call because they found his website when they were trying to turn back on the DMS 100 that was in California, that was in the fire.
Well, because like I said, everybody who works on this equipment is either retired or dead or both. Like the pool of people who maintain the PSTN dwindles daily.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're still out there.
I got, emailed on not one but two occasions of one company that was looking to migrate off of a 5ESS. And unfortunately, I don't know the 5ESS enough, and I don't own one yet. So
Yeah.
I have to give that qualifier because you never know. Hey, if the right opportunity comes up, all right. But I don't own one, and so I don't have enough experience to actually help them. But then another company, another institution, organization got out to me about a DMS 500, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know all about those systems. Let's do this.
And in return, you get a DMS 500.
Yeah, they found me because my website is apparently the premier source of DMS 100 information on the internet right now. So they kept coming to my website trying to do research about it. Yeah. Yeah, so
Cool.
people do reach out with stuff looking for help or stories or, just saying, hey, that was cool that you did that. And yeah, there's a community and it's a small, the people who are into this big equipment, it's a small community. And yeah, people who are on the hobbyist side, like we all kind of, some way or another, like friend of a friend of a friend know each other.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we're coming up to the end of the stream. We ran a little long, but that's okay because you all had wonderful stories, and those are my favorite. Those are my favorite ones when we have so much stuff we lose track of time. So, I think we want to just wrap it up here. Do you all want to go? Let's do a little round the world here and let everybody know where they can find you if they want to follow up on your shenanigans. So let's start with Kyle.
So you can find me on Discord at VCF Kyle. Also, there's like my retro computing brand I have on Instagram is Old World Computing. I may have stole that from a certain company that sells other Macintosh things, but I'm mostly a Macintosh person or came from that world. So Old World Computing on Instagram is where you can find me.
Rusty.
I don't have a particularly centralized location. I am on at least the VCFMW Discord. I forget whether that's a channel or a separate Discord. I think as Dr. Deek, probably a good place as any.
I have www.incompetell.net, the under construction webpage that I would love to feature write-ups on this equipment on at some point. That's the goal. Besides that, I'm on Discord. The classic computing, classic CMP is Exhausted 110. Also, Libera Chat IRC, Exhausted 110.
You can find me on IRC on Libera Chat as TRMG or Termig. I also do have a Discord account, which should be Termig as well. I'm not super active on Discord. I probably should explore it more, but that would potentially work too. And I also, speaking of the voice over frame relay chat, I have VOFR.net that you can also go to.
Oh, is that what that stands for?
Yes, that's voice over frame relay.
I learned something today.
Yeah. Am I able to share my screen quickly? Is that possible?
Sure.
Is that what this button does?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's going to reveal he's a live blog customer.
Let's see. Yeah, it's going to take me way too long here to actually do, but okay.
Charge for this service.
This is my website, www.dms-100.net, and this is my contact page. So I've got all kinds of information on here. Like all of the information, if you drill down computers, VCFMW, VCFMW20, I've got all kinds of write-ups here. There was a guest book voicemail box you can listen to, the telephone directory from this year, description of telephone services, how to order them, and information on the network with these ridiculous diagrams that I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, like the 3 clouds in 1 cloud. Yes, there's 5 clouds on this diagram.
To the cloud.
6 clouds, 3 of which are inside another cloud. And as you can see, these are all the services that we offered at VCFMW down here. So there's a lot of them. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a whole diagram just for how the cable plant works. Another diagram kind of showing more logically how things are linked together to get rid of some of the complexity of the physical wiring, and a lot of information on that. So if you want to know more about the VCFMW telephone network, that's all here. There's also information on past years. So
cool.
Very cool.
Again, that was dms-100.net.
You can find the exploits of SneakyNet at sneaky.nonroutable.network. One of the lesser used TLDs, but works quite well for this. And then I'm in the channels from IRC that are bridged to the Chicago Classic Computing Club's Discord. You cannot find me on Discord at all, but you can find me on Libera Chat as Maldridge.
Yeah, I'm come back to that. I'm also on IRC
Same.
on 3 different networks. I think they're all listed on my contact page. I don't know if I list any channels in there, but I'm around similar places as the rest of these folks hang out. Vintage computing channels, the VCFMW bridged channel, the
Yep.
telephony channel bridged to the Discord variant, and those sorts of places. So, and my email's listed there too if you have no other common ground contact methodology.
Awesome sauce. Ron.
Oh, hey, everybody. It's Ron with Ron's Computer Videos. You can find me most days behind the dumpster at Arby's, and if not there, at ronscompvids.com.
Yes. Yes. And
Joe.
last and certainly least, hi, everybody. I'm Joe of Joe's Computer Museum. As you all know, you can get it to me at jcm-1.com for all your bits and bobs to keep your old computers working. I do want to have one little extra announcement, however. Tomorrow night, the same time, Ron and I are going to be having a cool little stream. He is going to help curate the stream for me because I am going to be... You guys were speaking about Jesse from Generic Cable. I have one of these wonderful TechScan MSI CompuVid titler systems that I have been absolutely obsessed with since I was 8 years old. I have made a lot of progress in reverse engineering how this thing works. So we're going to do a little stream tomorrow night about the history of the thing, why I love it, and why preserving these things is very important. So tune in tomorrow night on my channel, my first content on my YouTube channel in 3 years.
Yeah.
It's insane, but it's going to be fun. So, all righty. Well, thank you all. Thank all of you guys who stopped by tonight to tell us about ShadyTel and SneakyNet and all of these other cool things that you guys have been doing. Thank you to everyone who stopped by the chat tonight to ask questions, to just watch and listen and hear about the cool things that these guys are getting up to. Ron, what's our next show? I don't remember who our next
our next show. You can join us back here. Let's look at the calendar because I think this is the 3rd Sunday of the month. So in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from tonight, it is our good friend Userlandia.
Yes.
So you can come and see what Dan has to say, and it'll be a good time.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.